Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, everybody. This is Gary Wilson, and welcome to this week's Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women, the podcast for you, engineer, pilot, teacher, fireman, dentist, orthodontist, mostly professionals and often business owners. If you haven't yet subscribed, feel free to do so whenever you're ready. It's on probably 3 dozen different channels: iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Also, if you want to be part of the community, this thing is growing like crazy. We are online. You go to myinvestmentservices.com, click on the members tab, and you can look to see what Silver Level is all about. You can try it for free. You can sign up. You don't have to sign up, do whatever you want, but we're out there in large numbers, several thousand and growing. And more importantly, we've got agents that we train to work with us. I'm a broker myself too. Investor first, broker second. Certified investor agents trained to work with us investors. This is important. So when you're out there looking for support, make sure you find out that they're certified investor agents. Otherwise, you get everybody else. And you want to have people on your team that know what they're doing, can walk the talk. So speaking of which, we have one of those folks today. Justin Jarboe is one of my great friends from a mastermind group we're part of. I've been up to Worcester, Massachusetts on a couple occasions, working together and teaching and training. So Justin, welcome aboard, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Hey, if you could do this, a lot of people don't know where Worcester is, and just, obviously it's outside of Boston. But let's go back in time and talk about where you were when you got started. How did you get into this? I mean, go back to college days if you want, because a lot of people, it kind of paints the picture, and take us forward through the progression, your first property, maybe your first deal as an agent, and then we'll get into some current day stuff. Does that sound cool?
Yeah, no, that's great. Great start. So Worcester is basically, so it's the second largest city in New England. So first is Boston, obviously, but it's 40 minutes west of Boston. So right down the pike, or Route 90, if you will. So when I got started into real estate, it was more I got recruited into the business. I was actually selling cars, luxury cars, for a little while, and I'd see these realtors coming in, and and they'd be like talking about buying cars cash, and I just couldn't understand how that was possible. So I ended up getting recruited into the business, and that was really like a really pinnacle point in my career and in my life and my growth and my investing, if you will, because at that time when we made the transition from that job to more of a career, obviously we're on commissions and we work, expenses are much higher, things like that. And so our expenses just went way up. Our overhead for different things went way up. And at the time, I didn't really track my finances. I was never really taught that in school. I never came from wealth. No one ever discussed money around me. And so my wife and I were making good money, but then when we transitioned into real estate, we started feeling a little bit of pressure. So, fast forward and really condense this long story into a short one. We started getting into more debt and more debt and more debt. And it started, we got comfortable with the different levels, and then we'd work extra hard to make more money. And then we would go on a vacation because we wanted to reward ourselves with like all these efforts. And we just ended up at square zero and just adding and adding and adding and adding to the point where we really hit rock bottom, where we were struggling to even afford groceries and things like that. And, but we were too embarrassed to say anything. We didn't really want to talk about that. And, when someone asked, how are you doing? Like, oh, no, we're doing great. We're doing great. Because, we were just trying to fake it forward and just like, bury our head in the sand and really just trying to figure it out. But what we were doing wasn't working for us. So then I got affiliated with some materials, some Dave Ramsey stuff. Ended up working our way out of debt. We actually got foreclosed on. We were trying to do a short sale. We tried renting. So the first thing we actually did was try to rent it out, because I was like, all right, if we can rent this out, if it's cash flow, even if it's just, net zero, I still have an asset. And then over time, through this recession, this was like 2007, 2009-ish, that all this started happening. We just couldn't find a good tenant. And part of that was I just didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't ask for help. So we tried short selling it then, and the bank just refused to work with us. And so being new in real estate, I had 3 different attorneys looking at this file, working with me. And they finally said, just let it go. Like, let it go. So we let it foreclose. And then the bank sued us for the deficiency balance of $78,000, which is the first time anyone's ever seen that. So all in all, we were $150K in the hole with nothing to show for it. And it was pretty embarrassing. So to say that real estate was something exciting because it was a career growth opportunity. It was also a sour point for us as well because we felt that pain from what real estate can do on the bad side. So we ended up, following the model of Dave Ramsey. We dug ourselves out of debt. We didn't file bankruptcy. We wrote off our last debt. I think that was probably about 3.5 years ago.
Awesome.
So we became debt free. And then at that time, I started getting affiliated with the GoBundance group that you were just talking about, the networking group, men's group. And something really clicked with me. And what it was, I'm helping all these other people build wealth in real estate, and I'm not doing it myself. And so I had to really sit down and look in the mirror and really realize what was there. And what was there was I just had a fear of doing what I did in the past and bankrupting myself and really getting in a bad spot. And I would do everything possible to avoid that. And everything possible to avoid it was not taking risk is what it was.
Yeah.
So as I educated myself and I learned more from experts like yourself and the group, I realized that, as long as you take a calculated risk, even if it's the wrong risk, you just keep plugging forward, you're going to be net positive and it's going to work. Right. And so I just went on a limb and it was really uncomfortable for me. So that our first investment, I had sold this investor a couple different things. And I really liked him, and he was, really, really nice guy, great integrity. That's one thing that I look for in our clients. And so I had reached out to him, just kind of a whim thing. I was kind of hoping he would say no. And I was like, hey, if I found a great opportunity to invest, would you consider investing with me? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Send me the deal. And I was like, God, darn it. I was kind of hoping, hoping it wouldn't work, but hey, I tried. But I did have a deal. And so then it forced me to really get real with it, like analyze it and look at it and have some other people look at it. And then what I realized was it really was a really good opportunity. We were buying an auction property. It was sight unseen, but I had a lot of business that I would do in that condo building. So I had access to the unit. So I actually got to see it before it went to the auction, and no one else did. And so he backed me up. He said, you know what? Buy it. This looks good. Let's start a joint venture. And I was like, okay, sounds good. So then we bought that and closed, and I was still like, waiting for something to go wrong, and nothing did. And it went really smooth, and we closed and then we cleaned it up and we rented it. And, there's hurdles that go along. I'm not going to, tell you anyone that's listening to this or watching this, the pipe dream of, if you research everything, everything's going to go well. That's really a poor way to do it, in my opinion. You have to fail forward. So if you're not taking risk or you're not getting outside your comfort zone, you're not going to learn and you're not going to grow as fast. So the first tenant we had was actually kind of a train wreck. She looked really good on paper. Credit was great. Everything checked the box. She wasn't a smoker, no pets, good income, everything else. And then she moved up, and then I met her to give her keys, and I was like, oh my God, this lady's crazy. She's literally crazy. So, but I was like, it's too late. What am I going to do now? So then, fast forward a few months later, I'm in doing something on a service call, and the unit smells like smoke. And I'm like, hey, what's going on with this? There's no smoking. She's like, oh no, it's one of the neighbors. But then I reach out to the neighbors, and it all points to my unit. So then I finally confront her about it. She's like, oh well, the lease. I had my attorney look at the lease, and it doesn't say no smoking. And I just started smoking. I'm 37 years old, and I'm like, oh my God. So it's one of those things where if we didn't have the pain of that particular thing, we wouldn't have been able to grow as well. So over time now, that was the first one. We've compiled like a lease addendum where we have different stipulations and stuff now. And then just recently, we just closed on our 20th door. So That was all within a span of 2.5 to 3 years.
Wow. Yeah, you're gonna have those the crazies, that's for sure. And you touched on some really key points there. Failing forward. So the reason we get education is so we know how to gather and use information. The information is vital in this business, and getting the education shows you what's available out there and how to use it. And nothing ever completely eliminates risk. What it does is you reduce risk. You can eliminate some risk, but some of the tendency is the toughest part of the business because, like you said, you do the screening, everything checks out. But you know what? People will fool you, and sometimes things change in their lives. So the point is, that may be 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100 tenants. So what I used to do when things were getting tough, I'd literally wake up and I'd go drive around on Saturday, look at all my properties, and realize, you know what? 90% of them are actually doing exactly what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it, and everything's going to be okay. That would make me feel better, But that one person who can really drive you crazy, So. But it's a learning opportunity.
All it is a learning opportunity, and we still have things that go wrong, but we're in a different mindset now where it's like, okay, that went wrong or didn't go the way we anticipated. What policy or what do we have to put in place so that doesn't happen again?
Exactly.
So you can do theory all day long, but you have to jump into practical. Otherwise, you're never gonna get that real life experience.
Right. By the way, so everybody listening, what we advocate is there's all kinds of leases out there in the world. We all the internet leases, the ones your attorneys will write for you, and the ones coming from the board of realtors from your state or from your province. What we recommend is this: use the ones, the body of the lease that comes from your board of realtors because they're pre-approved all the way to the Supreme Court level in your state. Okay. Now you can add addendums that have all your particular rules and regulations. So in other words, instead of writing a separate lease that's not been pre-approved, use one that is, and then you add to it. Remember, addendums override what's in the body of the main document. So you can put things in there about smoking, pets, firearms, drugs, all kinds of stuff. As long as they don't violate local, state, or federal law, you're okay. You can do that. And so when you do that, what happens is if you get into a litigation and you go to court, that lease document has been pre-approved already through the state Supreme Court system. So, and this is important, is there are cases where judges have taken other people's leases and rejected them, saying, I don't acknowledge this lease because it's not pre-approved. And you, the landlord, got to go right back and start from the very beginning. And that's a hard lesson. I didn't learn it myself, but I saw one of my colleagues go through that with a HUD lease, by the way, housing over development, a HUD lease.
Wow.
Court of Common Pleas said, that's not a Pennsylvania pre-approved lease. I'm not going to accept it. And this has been after 13 months, right? So we're probably scaring the crap out of people right now, Justin. But the reality is stuff, guys, you're going to, no matter what you're doing in life, you're going to have challenges. It's just like Justin said early on. There's good and bad to everything. In real estate, just like any other walk of life, do the learning so you can focus more on the good and learn to reduce the bad as much as possible. And then therefore you're over time win, which is what you've done. So I congratulate you for going through what you went through and not giving up. I mean, Dave Ramsey himself declared bankruptcy, right? So there you go. You've got to keep, if you can't ever give up, as long as you wake up and you're breathing and your heart's working, your brain's working, man, you can do anything you want. You just got to believe it, So
you got to tie it to something emotional too. So I hear a lot of people talking about, I want to have 100 doors. I want to do this, and I'm like, well, what does that ultimately do for you? Like, how much income is there? Like, what's important about 100 doors? And they're like, well, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, you're probably not going to get it then. You gotta tie it to something emotional. Like, why are you doing it? Because when it's going really fun and it's new and exciting, it's super easy to do. But when it gets challenging and there's obstacles in the path, it's easier to give up if you don't tie it to something emotional or something that reason why you're doing this whole thing.
Yeah. If you're anything like me, listening to good advice is helpful and inspiring at the same time. But having a reference guide at your fingertips is invaluable when I sit down to do serious planning. That's why if you go to the website, myinvestorservices.com, at the very top of the page, actually sort of near the middle, you'll see 5 different guides on 5 different aspects of real estate. All these are free, and all of them can help you impact your bottom line. Just check it out. Go to myinvestorservices.com, right smack in the middle, click on any one you want or all 5 if you want. There's something else Robert Kiyosaki said one time too, and this is my story. The real estate ends up really not being the end game. It ends up being the foundation upon which you can do other things. You can launch other businesses.
Yeah.
Do something like a charitable organization, things like that. So let's do this. If we talk about maybe one of your more recent deals, whether it's a duplex, fourplex, whichever one it is, and how did you structure it? And what's the what method are you using? Like the BRRRR method, like you bought it, low at value add.
Yeah.
So try one of those for somebody, because you're currently into it right now, so it's gonna really help a lot of people.
Do you want me? So I'm in one right now. I was literally this morning meeting with somebody. Do you want me to talk about one that just buttoned up and I did refinance, or the one that I'm doing right now?
You do one you just completed. That would be good.
Okay. Yeah. So I bought a fourplex 2 years ago. Hired a GC that I didn't vet because he was a friend of mine. He was a good Christian man. And come to find out, he really didn't have my best interests at heart. And the project got delayed, and we were about $100,000 over budget on a $200,000 budget. Well, it was 120, so we really was 80 grand over. But I had to come up with that 80 grand, and I didn't have it. So there was a lot of lessons that went through there as well, especially vetting the contractor and just the timeline and just understanding how construction works. So in hindsight, I would have probably partnered with somebody or talked to somebody that has been through that experience prior, so they can kind of pre-forecast some of those issues that I ran into, but I just learned it the hard way. So the project got delayed. That one was a house hack. So I put that in just my name. We owner occupied the third floor, and then we finished doing the renovations on the other floors. And then recently we did a refinance to lower the rate. So we did a 203K loan on that one. So we basically used the bank's money to finance the repairs. But again, we went way over budget on that. So there's a lot of tips and tricks and things like that we could probably talk about offline or individually with people on what to look for, what not to look for. But the big picture of it was we were over budget. Project got delayed. We were probably a year and a half in until we finished the project. Then I did a refinance not that long ago, lowered the interest rate and took out about, I think it was 75 grand equity. And I'm still at 85% loan to value. So I still have 15% equity in the property.
Yeah.
And I took 75,000 out to utilize towards another project.
Yeah. You know what I like about that example is at the end of the day, it's a success, but getting there, you went down this path, that path, but if you stick with it, you do succeed. So the beautiful thing about real estate, everybody listening, is it's a very forgiving commodity. In other words, if you screw up on the stock market, there's no plan B. You just basically take your hits and move on. But in real estate, you can make a mistake in real estate and recover. You can come back and change the design or replace tenants. You can change your financing down the road to overcome whatever negatives there were. So that's the most amazing thing I've seen. Early on, I'm thinking, this isn't so bad. I mean, I had a painful experience, but look, I'm making money. It's the craziest thing with real estate. So I appreciate you saying that. Now let's do this. I want to kind of switch gears. So obviously you invest too, and you're also a real estate agent. Some states we're all brokers, some states we're agents or brokers. But the bottom line is you're serving other investors. So from your perspective, Justin, what can you tell the listeners out here who are investors? There may be a orthodontist that owns her own orthodontic practice, and she wants to invest, and she wants to work with someone like you because you obviously know what you're doing. What can you tell them the way they can prepare or learn that would help you be able to serve them even better,
Right. Yeah. So great question. What we always advise is let's get together over a cup of coffee or a consult in the office. Just get to know each other a little bit more, figure out, what is it that you want? Why is it that you want that? And so if I can back into an empathetic standpoint of why you want it, what you want, and put myself in your shoes, then I can help guide you through that process a little bit more easier. So I may recommend a certain book to one person. I may recommend a different book to somebody else. I may recommend a podcast or something like that. So it's kind of case by case basis. I really want to get to know you and what you're all about, and then guide you and then educate you. And then when you're ready to actually jump in, then we have systems and tools and plans that we execute on and help you find the best property.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree that when I work with people too, but I started this way back in the beginning with my clients, and now I do it with my students and teachers. The first thing we do is I call it the discovery call. I just need to learn as much as I can learn about where you are, what you're doing, what have you done in the past, because that way if I know where you are right now and I know where you want to go, it's easier to define that path. But if we're not clear on where you are and I'm making an assumption about where you are, that path may not be exactly the best path. So everybody listening, when you work with someone like Justin, be willing to be open and candid. He's got to know where you are right now. I mean, financially, what do you have in savings? If you have any savings, what your credit rating is, if you have available credit, if you've bought or sold real estate before, what industry you're in. And this is all important because we know people who are business-minded, business-oriented, where in fact, you own a business. You see real estate through the business eyes, which is really important because real estate investing is a business. And a lot of investors who don't do that, they just leave everything up to somebody else, and they don't understand the nuances of it and details. Inevitably, they're a risk, So I suggest everybody get educated, read books, take training courses, just immerse yourself in become a student of the game, and then someone like you and I, Justin,
For
can
sure.
do a much better job helping them. But
yeah, it's the same thing in their practice. If they're a dentist or a chiropractor, something like that, the first day they got in the business versus where they are now, they've learned different tricks of the trade. They've learned different things and ways to save them time and save them money. It's the same thing in real estate. It's a job at first, and then it can become something even more.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Hey, listen to this. So we know where you are. We know some of what you've done. Let's talk about timing a little bit, like where we are in the economy. Like we believe we're at or near the peak. Nobody really knows. I mean, this thing could keep going for another 10 years. Chances are it's probably going to go at least another 3 to 5 years easily based on the numbers we're seeing. But everybody's calling for a recession. It just freaks people out. I'm like, hell yeah, we're going to have a recession. I just can't tell you when.
You're right. And if someone does tell you like, hey, we're going to have this, or they're telling you what's going to happen, that immediately is a big turnoff. I don't believe anything that person's saying because no one really knows.
Nope.
No one really knows what's going to happen. So what we can do is look at the analytics and say, listen, historically, the U.S. has had recessions or corrections. A correction is a little bit less than a recession every 8 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so since the last one, we're at what, 12 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it makes sense to do it. But again, no one knows. The signs aren't letting up right now.
I know we're screaming along. It's crazy. And now some of the other countries are starting to, I hate to say it this way, but we're kind of falling in line with everything we're doing as far as adjusting tariffs to be more even across the board. So in any case, so back to the subject here. How has, since you started, how has your model improved or evolved relative to timing, or like where we are in the market? Like, in other words, back in 2008, 2007 through 2011, we were, at the bottom, and then it started picking up, and it's been recovery ever since. So now we're definitely on the upside for the next 8 years. But what have you noticed yourself, or how would you say timing relative to the economy is help you improve your model, or change your model, or grow your model, or even not at all? I mean, I know, like for me, we always invest, but we have different methodologies.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Great question. So timing the market's really impossible. So I would never really try to do that. It's all about risk, right? So if we're at a point where it's perceived to be a peak of a market where there could be a correction at any point, I wouldn't jump into a long-term flip. I wouldn't try to flip something that's going to tie up capital for more than 6 months, because the market can shift and it can shift very quickly. Mm-hmm. So in that capacity, I probably wouldn't get into a long-term flip. If it's a quick flip, 3 to 4 months, something like that, I'll still do them. There's still opportunities to do that. But buy and holds, I don't care what market you're in. In my professional opinion, It doesn't matter whether you're at a high or a low. It's all about the cash flow. So I'm buying a hold for two reasons. One is to have cash flow, net proceeds after I pay my mortgage that I can use. That's my money. That's primary. Secondary reason I want to do it is in 30 years or 15 years or however long you take a mortgage out, I will own the entity and then I will have wealth. Right. So with those two things, the market doesn't matter. With the flip, it's more of risk aversion, whether or not you want to take a larger risk and with the market potentially going down or potentially go up. It depends on your risk tolerance. That's my kind of short answer for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm the same way. I back in 2007, my last flip at that time was literally July 30th, 2007. In August is when the stock market started doing crazy things, and it just dropped in the real estate market. I mean, within 3 months, we were full blown in recession. And I remember thinking after I cashed, it was a big $75,000 check. It was fun. But I'm thinking, nice. The market's doing weird stuff. I think I better just hold off on flipping for a while. Thank goodness I followed my intuition. But I definitely kept buying rentals. I'm always in the game for buying rentals because I don't get a big paycheck, but I get little paychecks every single month for the rest of my life, So,
and I think what you said too is really smart, and it might have been overlooked to our viewers. Is like you use your own intuition of like, maybe I shouldn't. Don't let anyone ever talk you into an investment. You should be slow to go in and then make a decision, make an educated decision. Don't ever rush into an investment or never try to force it for the numbers to work because it just never will turn out right.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, listen, we're getting close to the end here. By the way, this was going by extremely fast. This is like the perfect podcast. But hey, for people who are interested in Worcester, like I just taught a class in Houston. I'm here in Houston teaching as I'm doing this. And one of the students is familiar with New England, and he knows where Worcester is. And I'm pretty sure you're going to have some people want to get a hold of you. But how can you get a hold of you? Do you have a website you're producing, podcast, blog, email, phone number? How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Justin. Last name is Jarboe. It's Jarb as in boy, OE. And our email address is thejarboegroup@gmail.com. So it's THE, my last name Jarboe, JARB as in boy, OE group, GROUP @gmail.com. My personal cell phone number is 508-322-1499. Or you could just look us up on Facebook, the Jarboe Group, or Justin Jarboe on Facebook. Send me a text, whatever, just reach out. And a lot of the questions that you were asking before, on like the different types of questions we ask our investors, we've actually put together a investor questionnaire. So they don't have to worry about remembering all those different things. We can just send them a link if they're interested in investing. And that kind of gives us a baseline of getting to know them, and then we can build off of that.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you were working on a website last time I saw you. So when you get that, put that on the website for the people. Okay. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. And then they have it hooked in LinkedIn to your email, that kind of stuff, and that'll help you streamline. Plus, helps them kind of step into it. Just once tiptoe into it a little bit. So for everybody listening. By the way, Justin, I think I speak for everybody when I say thanks for sharing your time. I know you're extremely busy guy. Your time is precious, but also sharing your experience and your knowledge. I think you just helped a lot of people, man. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And for everybody listening, thanks for participating. We'll see you on the next podcast next week. In the meantime, have an awesome rest of the week. Take care, and God bless you and your families. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. Be sure to go to myinvestmentservices.com to join our community and start building wealth today.